Hi, welcome to Golf with Irene. We're going to do this show a bit different today because I had the pleasure of going out to Northampton, Massachusetts, and interviewing a man by the name of Dr. Stephen Hassan. Incredible content, seriously. I mean, I think that the work that this man is doing is very important. It relates to my own life story, which I have not really shared here on Golf with Irene. But unfortunately, the day we went out, it was extremely windy, and this gentleman is not a golfer. And so I've had to cut some of the content from the episode, and I'm going to be filling in kind of in between because I think that it's actually a blessing. This interview really digs into my own story, so much of who I am and what I've been through and what has led me to golf. And having this golf show is because of exactly what this man is talking about. This is also the first time that there's any mention of really religion or politics in the show. And I just want to say that any views of my guests or myself are not the views of Sub 70. So without further ado, I give you Dr. Stephen Hassan.
To Golf with Irene. I have with me here today Dr. Stephen Hassan, who I just ran into in Northampton.
That is true. We did run into each other at a coffee shop, pictures for proof, but I had actually heard of his work years earlier.
I understand you're not a golfer.
Nope.
But we're still gonna have some fun on the greens. All right, here we go. And we're off. Thank you for coming with me. So tell me again, what is it that you do?
Well, I'm a mental health expert in the topic of cults and brainwashing and mind control and helping people recover and de-radicalize.
How do you even begin a career like that? Like, what's your story?
I was 19 years old and a college junior writing creative poetry at Queens College in New York. My girlfriend dumped me. 3 Mooney women lied to me and recruited me into a cult called the Moonies, the one with the big mass weddings.
Yes, and like thousands of people married at like the same
Yeah, the record is 35,000 couples at one time.
Oh my God.
And the guy who ran it, Sun Myung Moon, claimed to be the Messiah, 10 times greater than Jesus Christ or any other spiritual being. Got to sit in on the meetings about taking over America and creating a theocracy and
literally there were meetings about
they were literally infiltrating the government and how God hates democracy, we should have a theocracy, and how we'll amend the Constitution and make it a capital offense to kill people who didn't agree and follow our rules. And I thought it was a great idea as a Mooney, and then I nearly died in a van crash, got deprogrammed, learned about Chinese communist brainwashing, and went, how the F did this happen to me?
Okay, sorry, so many questions. So
yeah.
I'm assuming you have degrees in...
Yeah, I have 2 masters and a PhD. I've been doing this work for 49 years. I have 5 books, did 4 TEDx talks, and I didn't think it was going to be a life work, but it became my purpose. Essentially after Jonestown tragedy happened with Jim Jones and the murder of 300 children and over 900 citizens, the assassination of Congressman Ryan, I realized there were other cults than the Moonies and Scientology and Children of God.
So 50 years now, that's incredible, of working in this environment, looking back at when you joined the Moonies and you were this bright young man at college. How does that happen? How did that happen to you, and how does that happen to people?
Essentially, it's an assault on a person's sense of self to break you down, confuse you, overwhelm you, disorient you, then get you away from normalcy with your family, friends, and culture, and indoctrinate you into this new belief system. And I created a model called the BITE model of authoritarian control.
This is where I will cut in, because when I first learned about the BITE model, I was 21 years old, alone, living at my aunt's house in Arizona. I had just dropped out of college and was going through this huge paradigm shift. I was losing my family, my community, my friends, and I felt so isolated. And I was searching for answers, and I came across the BITE model, and it actually helped me to start looking at my life and looking at things that were controlling me in my past so that I could start to think for myself. And we're going to get more into that. I'm going to let the episode play out a little more. It's just crazy to me that at 21 years old, I found the BITE model, and now I am 28 years old, and I'm interviewing the man that wrote it.
I've heard of that.
Behavior
I know what that
control,
is.
information control, thought control, and emotional control. And it's all about programming a pseudo-identity that takes over your real self.
And here's where we get into my story, because I grew up in a Mormon household. I was one of 5 siblings, and we were very, very strict in our beliefs. I would definitely call it a cult. I used to shy away from that, but in the direct sense of this organization essentially taking over my identity, absolutely. That happened throughout my childhood, into my teenage years, and beyond into my early adulthood. I served my Mormon mission in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. I was knocking on doors and baptizing people. So yeah, that was the childhood that I grew up in.
It's like my whole identity collapsed. And so rebuilding that identity has been a huge part of what I am doing.
You know, there's so many reasons in life why our identity changes. Sometimes it's a death of someone. Sometimes we move. Sometimes we change jobs. We get married. We get divorced. There's so many reasons why we start new chapters in our lives and our identity changes. But for me, I never even had the opportunity to think about forming my own identity. And so love where this conversation is going.
My behaviors were so childlike. I was so easily manipulated. And it has been 7 years now, and I still find myself working through that. But for you, it sounds like it was a bit different because you were 19 and you had a life. So do you think that when you joined the Moonies, were you looking for a different identity at that point?
Not at all. I was aside from looking for a girlfriend, I knew who I was. I had very strong progressive values. When I wrote my first book, Combating Cult Mind Control, in 1988, I didn't include the Mormons or the Jehovah's Witnesses because I had never worked with those groups.
Yeah.
And I first learned about Mormonism by being asked to help people leaving the FLDS, the Fundamentalist Latter-day Saints of Warren Jeffs.
Yes.
I was actually asked on the Dr. Phil show to help 2 15-year-olds who had run away and didn't want to get married to 60-year-olds. The show generated so much awareness about how horrible the FLDS show was that the attorney generals of Utah and Arizona started pursuing them as a mind control cult.
Yeah.
Many people who were born in mind control cults who didn't choose, or weren't deceived is a better term, because I didn't choose to join the Moonies. I didn't even know the term moon for months. I didn't know that they thought Moon was the Messiah for months. But the difference is, as a therapist, is when people leave, they not only need to learn about the models of what is brainwashing, but they need to know what's normal. Like if they weren't born in the cult, what would a healthy childhood be like?
Oh my God, I think about that all the time. I mean, I know there's probably a lot of kids that grow up and realize their parents weren't perfect, and we all have things that we need to deal with so we don't pass on generational trauma. But aside from the whole Mormonism thing, my parents were extremely uneducated in the School of Emotional Intelligence. And when I was 19 and went to serve my Mormon mission, my mother wrote me a letter telling me that she would be proud of me if I died on my mission. And that right there is such a crazy line to even say, but my mother really did believe that. Sacrificing her daughter, like Abraham would sacrifice Isaac, like that was normal. It was more important for us to serve the religion than to serve the functions of being a family itself.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of my work with folks who are born and were raised in authoritarian cults is explaining what healthy developmental psychology is about, what healthy parenting is about. And it's not corporal punishment. We know that causes trauma and damage. And many times I'm asked in an interview, why do you think America is so violent? And I'm saying, well, if you were beaten by the person who supposedly loved you as their parents, that equates violence and love in a very unhealthy way, because love is not violent.
No, it's not. One of my repressed memories that a cousin brought up to me when I was visiting them and we were having lunch. And they said, "Hey, Irene, do you remember that summer that my family came to visit you guys and it was your dad's birthday and your birthday gift to him was a whip?" Yeah, not just a whip. It was a whip that I made myself from a willow tree in our backyard. I made my father a whip to beat us with, should he so choose. That was my idea of a birthday present for my father.
My work is helping people create their new identity and not just rebel against their cult identity, but figure out if they had been not born in a cult, who would they have most likely evolved to be?
I get hundreds of messages from people asking me these questions because that's what a lot of my platform is. I'm talking about my story of building this new identity. So my question is, as an expert, where do people start?
I'd say as a generalization, we need to have a curiosity to be open to other perspectives and meeting former members, learning about other cults, ones that don't trigger your indoctrination, but, oh, I can see how Scientology is bad, or I can see how the Moonies are bad, and start building a framework intellectually of your beliefs to distinguish a healthy religion versus a mind control authoritarian cult. It's really about also having a safe place, making some friends, people who accept you, that you've left this environment. Often people are shunned in the Mormons as well as the Jehovah's Witnesses and other cults. So their family, their friends, even their careers have been jeopardized by making the decision to exit.
Yes, totally. So in my case, in Mormonism, ex-Mormons or Mormons have this terminology for people that are TBMs, true believing Mormons, or there's PMOs, physically in, mentally out. So they'll physically go to church with their family because they don't want to upset the apple cart, but they're mentally out and they don't believe in it. And then you have ex-Mormons. And people's lives are literally, they can be destroyed if they come out and say that they're not Mormon anymore. There's so much judgment, often divorce, and sometimes people could lose their jobs over it, especially like out in Utah. It's a bit of a different situation. If you're a student at Brigham Young University, which is owned by the church, I had to be so careful about not actually leaving the church or letting people know that I was leaving the church because my tuition rate could be affected. And they lock you in at that tuition rate. And so I had to drop out of Brigham Young University. I went to go live with my aunt in Arizona, which is where I first read about the bite model.
People are afraid to even speak out because there's a stigma still that only weak, stupid people, gullible people are susceptible to brainwashing. Unless you're psychotic or a schizophrenic, everyone can be brainwashed under the right set of circumstances. And the single best thing you can do to prevent that from happening is educating yourself. But the point is that I believe in my company's called Freedom of Mind. I say it's your mind and only you should control it. So a healthy adult should have an internal locus of control, which is in their body. So we're not just thinking, but we're also connecting to our gut. And when I do interviews with people who are involved with all types of cults, and I ask them, unlike people born in cults, what was your first impression when you met the recruiter or when you met the first thing? They were like, I had this voice that was saying warning, or I had this intuition that it was a cult.
Yep.
But they didn't listen to it. They allowed the external pressure and influences to override.
It's so often love bombing.
Yeah, the love bombing, totally intense. Like that time period of my life was definitely, without doubt, the most difficult thing I have ever passed through. I should give you some backstory. I came home from my Mormon mission. I was 21. I left when I was 19. I served in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and I came back when I was 21. I started working a summer job in the Midwest before I went out to school at Brigham Young. And I met a man who, on my normal social media channels, I refer to as the ecologist, because he is an ecologist. And I was a seasonal working at said forest preserve where he was an ecologist. And he was getting his doctorate in philosophy of ecology. And I thought it would be a brilliant idea to convert this man to Mormonism. Why not? And I failed miserably. He ended up asking me all the right questions, where I started to think about things differently. And I started to see cracks in my paradigm and in my reality. And when I started questioning, I went back to Utah. During this phase, the love bombing was so intense. It's the hardest thing I've ever gone through, because I'm starting to see bits of reality, but every time I would take a step forward or towards it, they would send someone to go get lunch with me. Someone would bring me cookies. Someone would just message me and say, "Hey, I haven't seen you in years. I was just wondering, how are you doing?" They were telling me that I was crazy for asking these questions. And so it was scary. The people that I depended on as my source of love in my life, the people that I thought were going to be in my life forever, suddenly are calling me insane. And if I don't go back to the way that I was, I would lose my family and the relationships that we had. Every day was panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I didn't know if I was going to make it through that time period of my life.
People often ask me, like, what was the tipping point? What was the big thing that just made it click? And the truth was, I don't think I ever really had that moment. It was just this continual, uncomfortable, man, I just know that there's something more. Just following my gut. And so I love that you said that.
Well, and having a warm connection with a non-believer who is asking questions in a non-threatening way, provoking you to think. People need an escape route out. And that's why right currently in the political situation in the U.S., I've been saying this for years now, the worst you can do with someone who believes Trump has been selected by God is to yell at them, call them names, try to argue facts or logic, and cut them off, because people will cut off, just like cults cut people off from their families. They will cut people off, and it's the opposite of what is healthy, which is, well, I respect you, I know you're smart, I don't agree with what you now believe, but could you help me understand it? Help me step into your shoes. Like, what do you think about the conflict between Musk and Trump right now? And just be quiet and wait till they think about it and give you an answer, and then ask another question, but gently. So the idea isn't to persuade someone to leave or convince, but to ask them questions where they reality test and check in with their own values. You know?
That's exactly how my story went as I was getting out, was that slow, because my husband was studying philosophy, he was able to talk to me about ethics, about the way that thought processes are built in your mind. And because I had never studied this or understood, Kant or Aristotle virtue ethics or anything like that. And so I think that it's brilliant that he did exactly what you're saying. It was just gentle questions and letting me build for myself a different way of thinking.
And I would add, I think he fell in love with you. And so therefore, you felt his genuineness, that he genuinely, and love that is true is not conditional upon agreeing or being obedient. Love accepts the person as a unique entity, as a unique soul unto themselves, and just wants the person to be themselves.
So who is that person for you? Because you said that you had that car accident. And then you got out, but who was that person for you?
That's a great question. I nearly died in the van crash, and I literally was rescued by the emergency workers by this pancake that happened because I drove into the back of a tractor-trailer truck at 80 miles an hour. And it was leaking gas, and these emergency people valiantly, this was before the jaws of life. They literally had a saw that was sparks everywhere, and they were afraid it was going to ignite the gas. I survived that
That's
trauma.
terrifying.
I'm in the hospital sleeping and eating away from the cult for 2 weeks. My real self wanted to call my sister Thea. She was the one person in my life during my Mooney involvement that never said, "You're in a cult, you're brainwashed." She always said, "I miss you and I don't understand. I want you in my life."
Different vocabulary.
But she was not deemed Satan because she didn't attack the group. So it was her that I reached out to and told her I was in the hospital. She said, "Oh, come and visit. You have a nephew you haven't seen. I want him to know his Uncle Stevie." That's what I was called as a kid. That use of Stevie brought back the old Steve.
Yeah.
I was talking about the dual identity, the real Steve. And that love connection made that happen. I made her promise not to tell my father or mother or my eldest sister because they were evil. But thank God Thea told them.
Yeah.
My father hired some ex-Moonies, and they basically did an intervention.
To come talk to you.
Which was called deprogramming.
Yeah. How do you use the BITE model, and how would you recommend people implement it into their everyday life? Because we live in such a crazy political climate right now where there's extremes on left and right, and people are in us versus them, and they're fighting, and then you bring religion into it. It's kind of crazy out there right now.
I just say to people, listen, it's your life, but make an informed choice. If something is legitimate, it will stand up to scrutiny. And before you make a commitment, open your eyes and hear different points of view. And you're intelligent. You can decide what makes sense, what has validity that's verifiable, and what doesn't. And I really believe that legitimate religions tell people what the beliefs are up front before they ask for a conversion or a commitment.
Yeah. Well, and you were talking, I loved earlier when you were talking about different points of views. It reminded me, and I totally forgot about this memory until right now, but
interesting.
When I was doing my research, after I had generally decided to leave Mormonism, and I was living in Arizona with one of my non-Mormon aunts, another safe space for me.
Right.
I was researching all other religions, cults. I saw this video clip of people standing up and bearing their testimony about their religion. And they were all crying. And one woman was a Muslim, and another it was Judaism, and another one it was Catholicism, and they had a vision of the Virgin Mary, and someone else it was Mormonism, and then there was an FLDS person. But it was all the same. And it just hit me that, you can find spirituality and feel just as strongly in any of these religions. What I had was not special. It's everywhere.
I want to add is that the influence continuum, which is a graphic that we created, it's on my freedomofmind.com website. You can download it for free. It explains ethical influences here, respect for your conscience, it's love-based, critical thinking, free will, creativity. And then all the way on the other side of the continuum is the authoritarian mind control as defined by BITE, where you're dependent, you're obedient, it's dogma, it's hate-filled, it's fear-filled. When people can have a framework, they can go, well, I'm in a group, I'm into golf, and I can talk to people about golf. It's kind of culty.
Not kind of. Golf is very much a cult.
But it's not a mind control authoritarian cult.
Yeah.
You have free will. It doesn't alter your sense of self.
I don't know, I feel like every time I step out on the golf course, my sense of self is altered completely. Because I thought I could hit a golf ball. I thought I could hit it up onto the green, and I can't. So, there's that.
yourself. It doesn't tell you don't think critically.
Too critically. It has you thinking too critically. You think about your swing path on the way down. Is your foot shifted in the right way? What angle are you going to putt on the green? Golf is overthinking.
Right? So there are real behavioral distinctions.
So perhaps after all, it's not a cult. Check in with me in the comment section.
And what I realized as I was studying is that even though Chinese communist brainwashing was a political cult, it still fit the Moonies, still fit Scientology, it still fit Jehovah's Witnesses, etc. And I organized it so you could remember it more easily. Behavior control, information, thought, and emotional control variables. And partly why I went and did my doctorate was because I realized the law itself needs to be updated to what we now understand about social psychology, neuroscience, and hypnosis. So I wanted an objective framework. And I'm someone who's a human rights activist. I believe in being in the present, in your body, with a positive future orientation. And when people say, but wasn't the Catholic Church a cult 500 years ago or 1,000? I'm like, if you look at the Bite model, yes, I think you could say that they were operating with information control, trying to be against any scientific observational understanding of the universe, for example, or going to war against Muslims for holy reasons and other things, right? Point is what's happening today and making healthy choices.
So how do you recommend that people stay in control of their minds, and if they're talking to someone that they think has just totally given in to some either religious or political subject where they're not questioning and they're just totally wrapped up in it? How do you protect yourself, and how do you help your loved ones?
First of all, when you look at the Bite model under behavior control, sleep deprivation is almost the universal technique that authoritarians use. With cell phones and doom scrolling, people are taking their phone to bed with them.
It's almost hypnotic. You just
It
don't
is
even
hypnotic.
realize.
I've actually talked about it because I'm an expert in hypnosis, because you have what's called time distortion. When doom scrolling is time distortion. You're like, I'm going to check my Instagram for 10 minutes, and 2 hours later, you're like, wait a minute, I need my 7 hours of sleep. So rule number one is you have to sleep at least 7 to 9 hours. You should be going to bed the same time and waking up the same time. Eating properly, less sugar, less ultra-refined things, more balanced stuff, exercising. But you need to have real life interactions and not just be on pixels all day long. And the average American is on 8 hours, 9 hours on their cell phone. And cults are continually programming people throughout the day, whether it's alerts, notifications, etc. And unless you put it on privacy mode, airplane mode, and give yourself time to work and have a lunch without checking your phone, etc. So that's really important. Secondly, I did a TEDx talk called How Can I Know If I've Been Brainwashed? And I have a link on freedomofmind.com where I outline a reality testing strategy. But again, I'm always orienting to empower people to decide for themselves, as opposed to me saying, hey, you're in a cult, because they'll be defensive. So what I outline is the first step, and this mirrors my own exit from the Moonies, I would add, because a lot of my work was based on my own journey. Disconnect from the internet. Don't go to meetings. Don't do the practices of the group. Just like give your brain time to chill out, at least a week. If you've been in it your whole life, take a month.
Yeah, I took probably 2 to 3 months when I was living in Arizona with my non-Mormon aunt and kind of just stepping back from life. But even then, I mean, I completely changed my phone number. I deleted all of my social media. Even after I left, people were coming and knocking on my door, bringing me cookies, bringing me bread. Oh, you babysat my children. I can't lose you like this. It was a very tough time. So if you are going through a situation like this, I would highly recommend set those boundaries. You won't regret it. It's very hard at first, but quite necessary when you're trying to rebuild a certain part of your identity that was either changed or was never even there to begin with.
And don't interact with anything from the group or the person if you think you've been controlled by a husband or a wife or something. Like, take a vacation.
When I started distancing myself from the voices of my family, there was so much guilt and shame when I was doing it, that I was the one that was causing this huge disruption in the family, and that I needed to stop this. Literally on my wedding day, I had an aunt come up to me and say, "This is all your fault. You need to fix the family. You have done this."
I was going to say, they were saying that message, which you internalized.
Yes. And so if you're brave enough to separate yourself to get some clarity of mind, that guilt and that shame coming from whatever party was kind of controlling your mind, there's going to be guilt and shame, most likely. You can do it.
Beyond the take a time out, then study Lifton's, study models of brainwashing, study the bite model and the influence continuum. Then deliberately seek out ex-members and critics, and with an open mind, listen to their story. Why did they leave if they were in the group, if they were a leader? Is there real facts here? And how does it relate to the bite model? How does it relate to my personal experience? Can I validate it?
Yep.
And reflect honestly over your experience from the moment you met the group. It's harder, again, it's a different process when you're born in a group. But I've talked to many ex-Mormons, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who said, I remember being 5 and I thought, this is ridiculous, or it was so boring. I hated sitting in the meetings or whatever. Just get in touch with your doubts and your feelings, your gut reactions, and then reflect back and go back in time to key moments, because everybody has had experiences which in a normal environment would have disillusioned them enough to leave, to exit the marriage or exit the group experience, and say, if I knew then what I know now, what would I do differently? And so you're rewiring your brain to the here and now and a positive future you.
I want to highlight this because whenever I first went to a community college after I dropped out of Brigham Young University, I was like a sponge. I just wanted to learn everything. And I had so many questions because my perspective of the world suddenly was changed. And what's crazy is that I was 21 and I was going through this, but so many, I mean, hundreds, thousands of ex-Mormons follow me on social media now, because I think there is this connotation that if you leave Mormonism, like, you're going to fail. And so people love watching my channel, and they love watching me do Golf with Irene and have my coffee company and sing, and my engineering career, being a pilot, like loving and thriving in life, when so many of us were given the idea that we would be unhappy and we would fail if we left. And so many ex-Mormons follow me, and I can't even imagine, like, people that have sons and daughters and they're in their 50s, 60s, or 70s, and suddenly they're restarting their life and rebuilding their worldview. I mean, that is an incredible, intense amount of work. Shout out to anyone who has ever left a cult and had to reform their identity. It's more people than you think, unfortunately. And I know the hard work that takes. Keep going.
Yeah, so I'll just say that, first of all, you and other creators from other cults that I've met over the decades, in processing and getting yourself out, writing music, writing songs, is deconstructing what you were programmed with, right?
Yeah.
It's marking a journey
Oh, music saved my life.
of yourself. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
I encourage people to write their story down. If they hear music in their mind, put on the recorder, hum it, like get it out. Memories pop up, write them down, put them in a chronology. That I wrote about in Combating way back in '88. Just getting your narrative outside of your head where you can look at it from the outside. What you've been doing is for yourself, but also I want to thank you because you want to help others. It's not a selfish thing. I just want to heal. But there's something very deeply fulfilling by helping others.
Oh, yeah.
And people go, I listened to your music and it really clicked with me and it really made me feel more connected to my real self.
Sharing my story on social media changed my life because the more that I was able to voice and piece together my story, it's like once it was out of me, I could actually view it and walk around it and have these different perspectives of this thing or this event that happened to me in my life and what my actual emotions were about it. And writing music was even better because I had then all of these thoughts. Well, I had to almost distill all of those thoughts, and that's what music did for me. I took all of these emotions and then put it into one single verse. And so I do think that art is so important as we are going about asking questions or trying to find ourselves at any time and place in life. So if there's any artists out there, I would highly encourage you to keep making art. If you're interested, start making art in any capacity.
It literally is changing the world. Your work is changing the world. Thank you so much for your time today.
I'm always fascinated to meet people who, have found freedom from authoritarian control.
If you were to define freedom, what do you think freedom is?
Good question. So we know that there's a genetic component to reality and an epigenetic component to reality. So we have DNA that we're born with. We have a personality in embryo when we're born, and then our environment is going to encourage certain things and discourage other things. We also are born into a certain family, into a certain socioeconomic environment, into a country. So that's going to shape our freedom or our choices or our understanding of it. But for me, I'm a human rights guy. You have a right to read what you want to read. You have a right to speak. You have a right to believe. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's just a beautiful statement of human rights. And so back to your question about freedom.
Yeah, what is freedom?
For me, freedom is the ability to have choices, to evaluate the pros and cons of each one, and make a decision to act on it. Error with all of these religious cults is they equate their human institution, their group, with God. So if you're in the Moonies, you're following Moon and his leaders, but it's attributed to God.
I was taught as a child the phrase, if the prophet has spoken, the thinking has been done for you.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, that's an intense line right there.
It is an intense line. And not only that line, but also this very popular line from my childhood that was, doubt your doubts. If you start doubting the leaders of the church or their teachings, just doubt your doubts. I just think it's so important to have voices like Dr. Stephen Hassan and what he is teaching, because at any degree or level that you are involved in cults or a high demand religion that takes away your thinking from you, there needs to be tools and resources.
So if people want to get a hold of you, read your books, see your work, do you have classes? Or
I have online courses.
Okay.
I have a very short, inexpensive course on the bite model now.
Okay.
But we have a 9+ hour course for clinicians, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and counselors.
So where do they find that?
they go to freedomofmind.com, look at the drop down, and follow the links. I also have a Substack. I also have a YouTube channel, Dr. Stephen Hassan.
Okay.
I'm at Cult Expert on Instagram and a bunch of other places, X now, etc. But I encourage people to read my books. I know, and most of them are on audio. I have a brand new one, a workbook called Understanding Cults. It's not yet audio, but there are 3 books, including The Cult of Trump, that I've recorded. This is the updated edition to my initial 1988 book called Combating Cult Mind Control. This is called Freedom of Mind, Helping Loved Ones Leave Controlling People, Cults, and Beliefs.
Yeah.
This is about creating a network where multiple people are interacting with the person to ask them questions and get in touch with frames that are brainwashing.
Why. Love it.
And this is the updated edition of my 2019 book, The Cult of Trump, 50-plus year perspective on how we are in 2025.
In our country today.
This is the whole framework of all the bad actors.
A landscape view of how this has developed over time.
Right. And people need to understand this now to understand what's happening today.
My last note to you guys is that it's become pretty clear that we are extremely divided in the United States. And I think that any extreme of any side of politics or religions can brainwash you. It's our job to ask questions. It's our job to talk with our neighbors. It's our job to find commonality. I feel very strongly about this because I would not be where I am today if I did not have someone who asked me enough questions that I started to think differently. I just would encourage you to be kinder, be a bit more patient, have conversations with people that you never thought you could get along with. You know, if you're on a golf course and you get paired up with someone that has a different political or religious ideology than you find ways to get along. You find ways to connect. Golf is a beautiful, uniting sport, I think. Maybe we just need to treat the rest of our lives a little bit more like golf.